Hello, everybody. It is Joe from the Strange Voyage Files. It is May 4th, 2025, and it has been a long time. It's been a while since I've done a video. I don't do this regularly. I do it when I find time, when I can. So sometimes I do a couple videos a day, and sometimes it takes 2 months to get videos done. So I'm glad I was able to do this. Now, you can see from my background, it's Lock Up the Wolves, but this is not a Lock Up the Wolves review. See from my shirt, it's Master of the Moon. Obviously, we're talking about Dio. And I want to jump right into this because this is a video I have wanted to do for years. When I had the Real Reviewing Guy channel, I thought about doing this for about 3 years now. And I didn't because I knew there would be a lot of opinions about this type of video. And people would say I'm bashing Dio and, I'm being disrespectful and whatnot, which nothing could be farther from the truth because, frankly, when a lot of people abandoned Ronnie, a lot of fans left Ronnie, I didn't. And that is what this video is about. This video is kind of a deep dive into, while yes, a lot of our heroes, Dio, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, a lot of these bands drop in popularity. For some reason, Dio, Alice Cooper's another big one. Dio hits bottom harder than any of the rest of them, in my opinion. And I really want to take a look at why, because I don't think it was fair. I for a guy who was so good to us, and it breaks my heart because there are people in those other bands that would rather spit on the fans than have to talk to them. And again, there are people in those bands that have been phenomenal. Rob Halford is so good to the fans. So I could, but Ronnie, there are a lot of stories about what it was like working with Ronnie. And, I'm not the type of to sugarcoat things. And Ronnie would never want anything sugarcoated. He could be an SOB if you worked with him. You hear the stories from the guys in Sabbath, and they weren't angels either. You hear the stories from Richie Blackmore, and God knows he's not an angel. Doug Aldrich did. There's a YouTube interview about when he said he wanted to go back to Whitesnake, and Ronnie just losing his mind. Vivian Campbell talks about Ronnie being difficult to work with, I'm sure, but I don't think Viv was the greatest either. Ronnie could be very temperamental. Ronnie could be very controlling. Ronnie could be extremely difficult to work with. The second it was a fan, he was the best person in the world. I have never heard one single story, not even in the realm of possibility, where anybody said anything except for how wonderful this man was, how he would sit and talk to you and take time. I hope you guys aren't hearing that my daughters are vacuuming downstairs. But he would take time with the fans, drive fans home that didn't have a ride home from gigs. There's a story, I searched and searched for this YouTube video because I saw it a few years ago, but somebody tells the story where they met Ronnie and their mother, I'm going to get it wrong, but a family member, okay, was sick. And then meets Ronnie years later, and he's telling Ronnie, my so-and-so was sick and whatever, maybe a grandmother, whomever it may be. And then meets Ronnie years later. Ronnie not only recognizes him and says, hey, whatever happened with your family member? And the guy was floored. This is Ronnie James Dio. Ronnie meets a lot of people. And he not only remembered me, but remembered that and knew, like, I don't remember who the hell it was, but Ronnie remembered who it was. That was him. That was he cared. Even if he was pissed off at, he could be screaming at Vivian Campbell or Craig Goldie in, you know, in one vein. And if somebody tapped him on the shoulder and he turned around and it was a fan and he said, the fan said, "Can I have your autograph?" It would be a smile. And of course you can. What's your favorite song? Where do you live? Who are you? You know, where do you come from? How did you get? You know, he was raised that way. He was raised in a way to respect people. He also said, and again, you know, on YouTube, easy to find. He talks about Richie Blackmore, and he said Richie Blackmore would, and I just said it about other people, rather spit on the fans than talk to him. And he goes, "What, you know?" And Ronnie said, "My God, what's wrong with this guy? You know, why is he like this?" I, you know, learned absolutely how not to deal with my fans through Richie, but it was also it was mainly his upbringing. He loved the fans, and it didn't matter if he was playing for 30,000 people or 500 people, which is, again, this is going to be a deep dive into this. But he does lose a great deal of momentum, and sadly, it's quite quick. You know, if you bring Dio up to, again, us metalheads, different story. Casual rock fans, you bring up Dio, and what are they going to do? "Yo, man, holy diver, you've been down too long in the midnight." And they sing it something like that, too. You know, it's like, "Ooh, I'm really going to emphasize that, man, because I'm cool and holy diver, man." It's like, shut up. Just be quiet. And that's it. That's a song they know. That is absolutely it. Couldn't tell you stand up and shout, couldn't tell you caught in the middle, couldn't tell you shame on the night, you know, couldn't tell you Egypt, the chains are on, couldn't tell you my eyes, you know, couldn't tell you anything besides holy diver. And they do it like kind of like Jack Black does, and maybe that's where they get it from. Is I'm not a fan of that guy at all, even though I know Ronnie loved him, so I gotta at least give him something, because if Ronnie liked him, he can't be horrendously bad. He's just annoying. But that's the extent of it. And Ronnie comes out with, and again, I'm not going to talk about the Sabbath and the Rainbow stuff. We're just going to talk about Dio here. Ronnie comes out with two unbelievable albums, Holy Diver and Last in Line. I mean, two absolute grand slam, out of the park. The ball not only goes out of the park, but goes through the windows of an office building, you know, and then into the stratosphere. I mean, that's how great these two albums are. So let's take a look at those real quick. Holy Diver. I mean, come on now. And now this one's my favorite. I mean, Holy Diver's great. You know, I mean, but this one for me, man, this is just, well, this will always be my favorite Dio album. And I will tell you, and I don't care how much grief people give me, Holy Diver, and I'm not knocking it. It's a classic, perfect album. There's one that I do think I like more than Holy Diver. It would be, so Holy Diver may actually be my number 3. And if you see my background, you know what it is. Lock Up the Wolves. And I'm telling you, man, and I don't care how much shit anyone gives me. Roast me in the comments all you want. There are days I may like Lock Up the Wolves more than Last in Line. It's just the heaviness and the darkness. And I don't like every song on Lock Up the Wolves. Evil on Queen Street, I think, sucks. Twisted, I think, sucks. I mean, I'm not saying I think they're okay. I think those two songs suck. Between Two Hearts has grown on me. That was another one I didn't like. The rest I think are awesome songs. Especially which was the bonus track, Why Are They Watching Me? But we're not going into a Lock Up the Wolves deep dive here. All right. So I said I was thinking about doing this album, or doing this video for a while. And this is what convinced me. This is the later albums. This was in 96 to 2004, these albums. I'm watching one day, about 3 weeks ago, I'm watching unboxing videos. You know, we all watch those and whatnot. And I'm watching those because I didn't know whether I wanted to buy that set or not. And then I realized, well, I don't have these albums on vinyl. And it was pretty much, actually, I think it was cheaper to buy the set than to try to buy them individually. So I ended up buying the set. But I'm watching these videos and whatnot, and one guy goes, "Well, yeah, I've never listened to any of these albums. This will be really interesting to hear. Never listened to these albums. Okay. You would assume somebody who's a Dio fan and doing a video has listened to the albums before. Okay. Watch a couple more. Somebody else says something along. I don't. Now the next one is something like, "Well, I haven't heard a couple. I don't think it was all of them." He said, "Well, I never heard this album and whatever it may have been." And I'm thinking, it really got my mind going again, because this is what I had found happened over the years, over the decades actually, was at a certain point there are drop-offs with Dio's fans. And it gets to the point that people that I knew, at least, that were monster Dio fans. In fact, Magica, let's say, I bought that album, and I'm buying these albums as they're coming out. I'm not buying these albums 10 years later. I'm not buying these albums a week later. I'm buying them. I'm keeping up. So I know when Dio albums are coming out, and I'm buying them as they come out, with the exception of, ironically, Lock Up the Wolves. Lock Up the Wolves, I walked into a music store and I saw the poster. So I hadn't even heard Wild One. I just saw the poster. I'm like, wait a minute. And I go, where's this album? Where's this album? And they had sold out because... And I asked him, I was like, "Oh, come on, how long has this album been out for?" And it was only out for a week or so. But he goes, "We didn't get that many from the record company, so they kind of sold out quick. But we'll have a few in the next couple of days." So I call up my buddy who's a big Dio fan too. I go, "Did you know there's a Dio album out?" And he goes, "You know what? I was watching Headbangers Ball, and they were singing something, and he was doing something. He was with his girlfriend, so what was going on." And he's like, some was playing in the background. I knew it was Dio, and I really wasn't paying attention to it. And so it must have been Wild One that was playing in the background. He goes, "Nah, but no, I didn't know that." And I go, "Okay, well, yeah, it's this, and it's a kick-ass cover," because the poster was the cover. And I was like, it's called "Let the Wolves Go." I remember that vividly because something with wolves, and it looked like the guy, was letting the wolf, releasing wolves. So for whatever reason, I said it was "Let the Wolves Go," but obviously I was wrong. So I did get that album, but all the other ones I've not on the day they were released, within days. But even that guy, I think "Lock Up the Wolves" was his last Dio album. I had more of my friend's cousin, but he was a friend, a really nice guy, monster Dio fan. To the point where he named his kid Ronnie J. I'm not going to say his last name, but it does kind of rhyme with Dio, but Ronnie James. And I remember when, I want to say Magica, but don't quote me on that, came out. A few weeks later, I'm at a party, and I run into this guy, and I said, "Oh, did you get the new?" I just assumed, because he's big Dio fan. Hey, I named my daughter after Randy Rhoads. If they were releasing something new with Randy, I'm buying it. And I said, "Hey, did you get the new Dio album?" And "There's a new Dio album?" I said, "Yeah, Magic." And it may not have been Magica, but yeah, I think it was Magic. It was either Angry Machines or Magica, because it was that era. Look, I lost. After Dream Evil, I lost interest in Dio and blah blah blah. You named your kid after named your kid after Dio years later, but okay. But this is the story. As I'm talking to people who are fans, who are metal fans, they don't even know he's releasing albums. And before I made this video, I was looking at the tours. And it's just dropping dramatically. And by the time he gets to the Lock Up the Wolves tour, and I can only go by Chicago. So he's playing the Riviera Theater, and it's downgraded from the Aragon Ballroom. The Aragon Ballroom is it's not a small place if you're a local band or you're a mid-level band. But for Dio, it's a really small place, and they said that they had to cancel the Aragon Ballroom and move to the Riviera for slow ticket sales. Riviera's a small theater, 1,000, 1,200 people. Whew. And then by the time he gets to Angry Machines, he's playing Jackhammers in Schaumburg, which is a suburb in Illinois, Chicago, which is, again, a club. And again, a lot of people did not know he's releasing albums. Why did this happen? Well, let's go into this dive together, shall we? And I said this goes in phases, and this is phase one. This is the album that's, all over the place with people. It didn't fare well when it came out. I can tell you that. It still sells 500,000 copies. But it's the last certified Dio album, which sucks. But this is the one that tour does very well. But fans said, no, this sucks. And a lot of people like this album now. And that goes into my whole theory of rose-colored glasses, where we look back on the past, and that's just human nature. But, I mean, Rock and Roll Children, I like. Sacred Heart, I like. King of Rock and Roll, I like. Hungry for Heaven, I like. Another Lie, I think, is great. Actually, side one is pretty great. And then you go to Like the Beat of a Heart, Just Another Day, Fallen Angels, Shoot. They're garbage. They're fillers. I don't know really anybody who likes those songs. And people got this album. They said, oh, Dio's lost it. Viv leaves or gets fired, depending on who you want to talk to. Again, people still, he's a great draw as a live act. But this is phase one. This is phase one where people start leaving Dio. Okay? Not in droves, not in mass, but this one. The same people that leave Iron Maiden for Somewhere in Time. The same people that leave Ozzy for Ultimate Sin. The same people that leave Priest for Turbo. This is where, and again, it's all around the same time. This is 85, right? Yep, 85. And those albums came out 85, 86. So it's happening, and a lot of them don't come back. Now, a lot of them come back for Ozzy for No Rest. A lot of them come back for Priest with Painkiller. A lot of them come back Iron Maiden. I can't, as much as I love the album No Prayer, but some of them come back with Brave New World. But they don't come back with Dio. And here's why. I say we do this in droves, in phases. This is phase two. Now, good album. Better than this, by far. Absolutely better than this. Problem is, you've got this. And the problem with these two albums, the biggest problem with these two albums in retrospect, there's no bad songs on either one of these albums. In fact, both of these albums are killer. Are phenomenal. Killer, no filler. I stole that from my buddy Ralph. This, half the album's filler. This, it's all over the place. I love Night People. I love Dream Evil. Sons of Superman's not horrible. I do like All the Fools Sailed Away. Naked in the Rain has grown on me. Overlove, I do like I Could Have Been a Dreamer. Faces in the Window, And When a Woman Cries, And remember, this is Craig Goldie. So the band is changing. And after this, Jimmy, Vinny, I don't know how much Claude was really kind of part of the original agreement. I mean, he obviously wasn't there with Holy Diver. After this, they realized this is not a band anymore. This is a Dio solo project. They realize this. They get it. New guitar player. Great guitar player. I could do a deep dive. I could do a whole video on this, and I'm sure I'd get crucified. Craig Goldie, I think, is better than Vivian Campbell. I was never impressed by Vivian Campbell. Just gonna say it. Not saying he's a bad guitar player. I will not sit here and say he sucks. I will not sit here. I just he doesn't do anything for me. That being said, neither does Craig Goldie. Roast me all you want. I don't care. There is a guitar player that I think was phenomenal. Here's where I think he screws up. Big time. If the leadoff single was Night People, this album would have been a comeback album. People would have forgotten about this. Because this album holds, at least, even though every song is not... They're not this, and most of them can hold water. Here's the problem. I do remember seeing the lead-off single, I Could Have Been a Dreamer, and going, what the hell is Dio doing? Good song. I Could Have Been a Dreamer. It should not have been the lead-off single of this album. And anybody who was still holding off hope after this, say goodbye. Again, I remember the time. I remember this coming out. I remember talking to my friends who said, I heard that new shitty song on Headbangers Ball. Dio sucks now. And if they had even more doubt in their mind, maybe I'll give Ronnie another chance. Second single is All the Fools Sail Away, which I love. And again, your fans who gave up on Maiden with Somewhere in Time and gave up on Ozzy with Ultimate Sin, listened to All the Fools Sailed Away and said, where's Ronnie? Again, Night People is by far the best track off this album. Night People is, in my view, one of the best Dio songs. Naked in the Rain may have been able to hold up as a single. I like Dream Evil. There are people that can't stand that song. I think Dream Evil should have been the second single. And I think this would have salvaged some things for Ronnie. But it doesn't. All right. Now the House of Cards falls. Because you have Jimmy Bain stick around for a little while. Actually, Craig Goldie leaves. Or gets fired. I don't remember how it goes at that point. Craig Goldie is gone. No guitar player. So it's Jimmy. And then they do fire Claude. Or Ronnie fires Claude. So it's Jimmy, Vinny, and Ronnie. The nucleus that really starts the band. Jimmy is not thrilled with Ronnie. He doesn't like the direction things are going. He leaves. But does write some songs that will eventually end up on what I consider to be one of the biggest masterpieces. All right. There is a small point in time where this band consists of, and this, I think if this lineup would have stayed together, Dio would have been shot back into the stratosphere and we would have gotten monster album after monster album after monster album. You have Ronnie. You have Jens Johansson on keyboards, who's much, much, much better than Claude. I like Claude, but much better. And writes very well. Jimmy, Vinny, and Rowan Robertson, who is better than both of the former two guitar players. Disagree with me, that's fine. However, Warner Brothers does not believe in this album, and now it's 91. This is 2016 because this is the 1990. There's still time because grunge is not taken over yet, but they don't believe in this album, and Ronnie is shifted down from Warner Brothers' main label to Reprise Records, which is kind of the, backseat of the Warner Brothers car. while this album does have some songs that almost all fans agree on, like Wild One is pretty good. I love, but I mean, I think Born on the Sun should have been the second single. Hey Angel was great too. This goes nowhere. And it's not promoted. It is not promoted. Again, it was not uncommon to not even know this album comes out. And by the time Ronnie is touring for this, he's in clubs. This is the nail in the coffin. This is where, if you're not a Monster Dio fan, you probably have not even made it to this point. Because after the two singles of this album came out, and you were so disillusioned after this and Sacred Heart, you didn't even care about this. And Wild One may have come out, if you're watching heavy metal or Headbangers Ball, Wild One may have come on, you may have flipped the channel. Sadly. But that's what happens. This is where people start saying, oh, he's still releasing albums? Ronnie still has albums out? Really? Are they any good? It's a shame. I love this album. Everything about it. The cover. Yeah, what else? Between Two Hearts. Night Music. Oh my God, is Night Music unbelievable. Yeah, Evil on Queen Street sucks and Twisted. And I remember correctly, it's Jimmy Bain co-wrote Twisted. And I love Jimmy Bain's stuff. Could be wrong on that one. It's a song I want to like, but don't. Now we're in limbo. So what does Ronnie do? He does a smart thing. He goes back to Black Sabbath with a great album called Dehumanizer, and you guys all know this. And it does garner interest back in Dio. Now, boys, I'm really curious to see the comments of what I'm about to say. This comes out. This piece of crap. Can't stand this album. I have tried listening to this album, I can't tell you how many times. Garbage. From track 1 to, what is it, track 10? I don't even know. Listen to it. I bought it. I bought this album the day it came out. Went home and listened to it and said, oh, God. Now, at this point in time, Jimmy's gone. Vinny's still in the band. And it's Tracy G. Now, you talk about, if I tell you that Vivian and Craig Goldie are good, I'm not going to just say they're okay. They're good guitarists. I'm just not a big fan of them. Tracy G. Guy sucks. Absolutely sucks. There was talk, you can still see it now, and I think it's even on Wikipedia, where Tony Iommi says that one of the songs was kind of stolen from the Dehumanizer sessions. And a lot of people, including myself, say this does sound like Dehumanizer. I remember the articles in whatever magazine it was, and there were more than one article where Iommi said a lot of this album was stolen. A lot of this album was based off ideas that Sabbath came up with, and that was a big problem between him and Dio. And if that's the case, it makes sense, because I can understand why these songs did not make it on a Black Sabbath album, because I think this album sucks. A lot of people love this album. A lot of people, and God bless, and I hope to God one day I do, because it is a heavy, crushing album. It is, but this is where he goes too into nonstop mid-tempo for me. Ronnie had a good mix of mid-tempo songs and great melodic songs on his other albums. This is where it almost becomes all mid-tempo, and that's where I think a problem comes. But this does nothing. This goes to one I checked. It's the last one to chart, 199. Nah, I shouldn't say it's the last one to chart. I don't know if that's the truth. But it goes to 199 on the Billboard charts, I think, for 1 week. And simply because he's coming out of Sabbath with this. So just out of interest. That's it. Nobody, if you are not a big Dio fan, you don't know this album exists for years. And again, we can play this game and we can say, oh, God, man, no, this is great, blah, blah, blah. They're just, the numbers don't lie. I hate math. I can't stand math. Numbers don't lie. People weren't buying this album. So a lot of people today who said, man, I was, this was it. This is, the whole thing, Dio and blah, blah, blah. And they weren't buying this album. Jeff Pilson's in this. Yeah, this Tracy G guy. It's a shame because I really would like this album. But I don't think it's going to happen at this point in time. It's purple. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, man. I had to buy this one because this was part of that first disc set, and I didn't buy that because that was insanely expensive, especially when I had every album except for Dream Evil. I had to buy that one not recently, within the past year or so. Then I got this one. It was kind of pricey. I think it was like $70 or something like that. But I wanted to have all the albums on vinyl. Had it on CD. Still have it on CD, but yeah, this one did nothing for me. But again, Ronnie goes from, again, however you want to feel about that album, okay, bad, whatever. This one is the one that everybody pretty much agrees on was the lowest point for Dio. There's some people. My buddy Ralph Vieira, who does the Almost Human channel, great guy. I love his channel. He is phenomenal. He likes this album. And he possibly is the only person I know that likes this album. But God bless him. Because again, I wish I would like this album. I am starting to say I like this album, which was always at the bottom of my list, more than this one, believe it or not. I know some of you are going to tell me where to go. But this was just... And there's no interest at this point. Absolutely no interest. I mean, again, playing clubs. And he tries to go industrial. Now, this is, again, 2023, but this is early 2000s, right? Yeah, let's find out. I hate not knowing. Dio intermission. Dream Evil's 87. I'm scrolling through the 92. Shoot, I don't want Black Sabbath. I want Strange Highways is 93. So this is 96. Okay, yeah. In some phases at this point, Nirvana and that crap is kind of starting to go out of the way, and we're getting into Limp Bizkit. That stuff. Sorry. But yeah, this is not good. Does not help. All right, then we get to this. Now this is lauded as the comeback album, okay? And Jimmy Bain is back, and Craig Goldie, but we lose Vinny. We get Simon Wright back, who was on. Simon Wright ends up being on Lock Up the Wolves. Vinny does leave like a month before they're going in to record. Simon Wright compared to Vinny Appice. Or a piece. I'll screw that up until I die now. Vinny all the way. This was touted as the comeback. I don't know why. I think it does chart again, really. Let's see. Does it end up charting? Yeah. On independent albums. I mean, not to knock it, but I mean, charts on independent albums doesn't hit the Billboard 200. I think it is marketed, and by this time, so after Strange Highways, Warner Brothers kicks Ronnie off. Mercury Records tries, and then this flops so bad they kick him off the label. So now he's on Spitfire Records. Okay, and it's just, this does not do anything. Again, this is not... Ronnie loves this album. I don't like this album at all. I actually, man, I gotta listen to these again because I think I like this album now more than this album. I may even like this album. God, I don't know, but I don't like this album at all. And again, tried to. But again, I think the biggest problem is all the mid-tempo. But this brings us back. It gets us, he stops doing this industrial thing and he goes back to Swords and Sorcery, which we all love with Ronnie, but by this time I think it's too late. Now we get the last two, which are great albums. Killing the Dragon is phenomenal. Best song off the album is Scream. He does get some recognition because the Push video does have Jack Black in it. So I got to give Jack something for helping him out with that. So there is some recognition with this, but it doesn't really push as many units. And then this other one, which is phenomenal, Master of the Moon. And again, by the time these are absolute sister albums. This is... It's too little, too late. Now, Jimmy plays on this one. Does he play on... God. It's terrible. There was a time where I could tell you these things without... He plays on Killing the Dragon. But he's gone. I know he's gone by Master of the Moon, right? Personnel. Yeah, Jeff Pilson's in. Yes. But Craig Goldie's back. All right, that's another thing. That is another reason why I think that Ronnie is never able to reclaim the old glory. The band is never consistent. It is all over the place. At points we have people that nobody cares about. No, Teddy Cook on Lock Up the Wolves. I have looked to see what happened to Teddy Cook so many times, and I can't find anything. Can't find anything on the internet of what happened to Teddy Cook. He could be the CEO of a major company right now. He could be cleaning trash cans. I have no idea what happened to this guy. Tracy G is another one. I don't think anybody really cares. But there's so much inconsistency, so much back and forth, so much, this, so much that, so many, this guy's in, now this guy's out. Rudy Sarzo's touring for Master of the Moon in the end. And Rudy would have been great, if we weren't going to have Jimmy, which Jimmy would always be my first choice. Love Rudy. Rudy would have been great. And I think with the inconsistency, it kind of it's going to be, stick with me on this one, with this analogy. It kind of makes me think of George Lucas with Star Wars and the prequels. A lot of people recently, in the past few years, said that now when George Lucas made the first 3 Star Wars, the real ones, his now ex-wife was with him, and she was the gauge. And she would say, George, this works, this doesn't work. George, this is a dumb idea. George, get rid of this. George, fix this. George. And that woman deserves as much credit, truthfully, on Star Wars as George Lucas. Because a lot of people didn't like the prequels, and the reason being is nobody was telling them no. And, George Lucas could have walked in and said, hey, let's have this character Jar Jar Binks in the movie. And everyone said, oh, it's a great idea, man. George, you're the best, blah, blah, blah. There's nobody to say no. Ronnie James Dio had a great idea, great possibility of coming back, but not the greatest songs. And nobody said no. Why? Because Ronnie was central. This goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. Ronnie could be very difficult to work with. And it comes to a point pretty much here, cemented, when the whole band is gone except for Ronnie. It's Ronnie's way or it's the highway. And he don't argue with him. That's it. It's Wendy's way, too. Sharon Osbourne of the Dio world. And I don't think there was anyone to say, Ronnie, that song needs some more work. Ronnie, that song sucks. Ronnie, that song's great. That song should be the single. And I think if there was somebody who could do that, And I think by the time Jimmy returns for Magica and for Killing the Dragon, he's just I hate to say it, but I think he's just kind of there for a paycheck. He's Jimmy doesn't do much outside of Dio. Um, and it's a shame because Ronnie, his voice never gave away, never went away, never started to falter. I believe his writing never really started to falter either. But if you look at Ronnie, now, yes, well, I don't know. I should say you look at Holy Diver, the song. He wrote a masterpiece, but J.K. Lee will tell you that he had a big hand in that masterpiece. We're not going to go down that road today. Ronnie writes some killer music, but it's often with help. Richie Blackmore, Tony Iommi. Give him credit, even though I'm not a big fan. Vivian Campbell, Jimmy Bain, Vinny, to an extent. Vinny doesn't write as much as Vinny and Jimmy, but he still writes. Rowan Robertson, Craig Goldie. And he does co-write most of these albums with people. But it's when Ronnie says the song is ready, that's it. It's ready, and that's the end of the story. And I think that was a big problem. There are songs, I think I Am is an underrated, phenomenal song. Scream, I think, is an unbelievable song. The song Master of the Moon, I think, is great. Death by Love. But some of them needed more polish. And, again, we can say now, oh, man, these are great albums. Yes, they are great albums. But a lot of the people saying it now, they weren't around when these albums came out. They came back around after Ronnie passed away, and that's great. It's phenomenal that we rediscovered Dio for a lot of us. But it was a shame that this happened. Ronnie was such a talent. He deserved better. And Ronnie's big, and I'm not the only person to say this. A lot of people who have been interviewed will say the same thing. Ronnie's greatest asset was Ronnie James Dio, and Ronnie's biggest enemy or fault was Ronnie James Dio. His drive and his determination made him a legend. His ego hurt him on more than one occasion. His stubbornness, maybe it wasn't much ego, but his stubbornness hurt him on more than one occasion. I listened to these, especially Master of the Moon and Killing the Dragon, especially Killing the Dragon. Master of the Moon is great too. And think these two albums, they should have blown up. They really should have. Again, these albums are coming out when Iron Maiden is back in form, when Judas Priest, people are back into Judas Priest. Even Alice Cooper, and Alice Cooper is probably the closest to kind of hitting a point where people didn't know he was releasing albums. The only difference with Alice is he had Nights with Alice Cooper. He had that radio show for years that was syndicated. And I think that's what kept people more in tune with what was going on with Alice. Ronnie I will go to my grave saying Ronnie should have done a radio show. Not just to stay in the public eye. Ronnie would have been so much fun doing a radio show. He loved talking to people. He loved this stuff. It's a shame. I did stay with him. And I will tell you, these two albums especially grew on me over the years. I was not too fond of these albums. Thought they were okay. I thought they were better than anything that had come out since Lock of the Wolves. They were 1,000 times better than Strange Highways, Angry Machines, and Magica. But it didn't mean much. It didn't say much. Now I think they're great. I think that He deserved better. He would go to these clubs. He would. Last time I saw Ronnie was on the Heaven and Hell tour. But the last time I saw Ronnie solo, I I know I saw him opening for Iron Maiden. I think that was the last time. I couldn't even tell you what tour. I want to say it was their Give Me Ed Till I'm Dead tour. Don't quote me on that. But he was opening for Iron Maiden. And I remember going, man, this should just be a dual bill. But he went on that stage, man, knowing that he's opening for a band that he was influencing from being in Rainbow and from being in Black Sabbath. Yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden's first album came out in 80, and Heaven and Hell came out in 80, but you tell me that didn't make it, that Heaven and Hell didn't make an impact on Iron Maiden. The guys in Iron Maiden will tell you different. But it didn't matter to him. He smiled, and he was great, and he deserved better. And it does kill me that he put his heart and soul into these albums. Because you can hear it. None of them were phoned in. I do think Sacred Heart was phoned in. Absolutely. There was a lot going on with that, Then you go down the whole tunnel of were Wendy and Dio divorced? Were they not? I mean, there's been so many different stories on that. We're not going to go into that. But Sacred Heart was absolutely phoned in. And I think the argument could be made that part of Dream Evil was too. I don't think anything else was. Whether you like it or not, he put his heart and soul into pretty much every album. And the albums, again, that I think had things phoned in, it's because there was too many other things going on in his personal life. He probably should have taken a break and not done an album. But, of course, he wanted to keep the momentum, and the record company wanted them. This was the 80s. You got to remember, from up until about 1986 or so, bands put out albums almost every year. Sometimes twice a year. Especially in the 70s. So to say, hey, I need 6 months off or I need a year off would not have gone over well with Warner Brothers Records. I am glad that people are enjoying them now. God, I just wish that, and I'm not saying this pointing fingers. I'm not saying this. I don't think there's any way where this is not going to come off where I have a holier than thou attitude, and it really is not my intention. I wish some of you watching this video would have stuck with him through those lean years. Because in the end, he didn't end with Holy Diver and Last in Line, but he ended up with 2 great albums. And I get it. I mean, don't get me. I'm not assigning blame. The bands I was loyal to, I was insanely loyal to. And Dio was one of them. I don't know. It strikes a chord with me when I watch an unboxing video of somebody who's like, oh, I was a big Dio fan. I was a monster Dio fan. I never heard these albums up, and, I can't wait to listen to them. I'm like, come on. Then you weren't a monster Dio fan. If you didn't know, had any idea what these albums sounded like, if you didn't know that Master of the Moon existed until after Ronnie was dead, you weren't a big Dio fan. And it bothers me because Ronnie was so loyal to us. He deserved the same. He deserved our loyalty. The man lived it. He absolutely lived this heavy metal life. And he lived for us. He never, Maiden got pissed at, especially Americans, when album sales dropped after Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, and album sales dropped in the United States. Maiden would bash Americans left and right. I still love Maiden. I was still absolutely loyal to Maiden. But man, they would bash us left and right. I mean, you knew there was an animosity. You knew that when I was at the No Prayer for the Dying tour, you knew they were doing that tour because you can't not tour America. Um, can't say the same about Priest because Rob is like Ronnie. Um, and again, I don't mean to bash Maiden, but it's the truth. A lot of bands got mad at their fans. Iommi was frustrated with their, when he Cross Purposes, again, an album a lot of people love. I think it sucks. Forbidden, most people think it sucks. Tear is a good album. Nobody knew it was around. Unless you were a Monster Sabbath fan. And Iommi was pissed. Dio never was. He never phoned in a concert. May have phoned in some songs on a couple albums. Gave 150% at every concert. He stayed after the concert. He talked to fans. He signed fans, autographs. He cared, and it bothered him. When he's singing, when he putting his and it when he puts his heart and soul into this, and even someone like me who says this is something sucks, I don't want to say that. I want to say this was unbelievable. Thank you, Ronnie. And I do say thank you, Ronnie. It hurt him to see on a tour like that 500 people. That I'm playing a venue for 500 people. Or if I'm playing an 18,000 person venue, it's because I'm opening for some band that when I was in Rainbow or Sabbath were opening for me. Never let it go through to the fans. He never... But again, I think nobody was in a position to tell him, Ronnie, this isn't working. Ronnie, we need to fix this. Ronnie, we need to do this. And the lineup changes were just so... When I was a kid, I could tell you each lineup change. I can't do it now. I can't. That didn't help either. But... Ronnie is phenomenal, and I'm glad people are finally listening to these albums. I just wish it was more people back then. So, again, this was just kind of a why did Ronnie get the shaft? Why was it Ronnie? Because, again, he didn't do too much different from a lot of these other bands. I know people love Osmosis. That album is the worst Ozzy album. I don't care. Say what you want. Down to Earth sucks. I used to like that album more than I do now. Black Rain sucks. The only thing that saved Ozzy, two things were the Osbournes and Ozfest. Wasn't much different. Two Blaze Bayley albums. Again, there are those people that like them. That's great. Suck. Priest, but they were all kind of able to bounce back. It just bothers me that Ronnie was not able to. So, but it's a legacy that is phenomenal. I know there are people that love every album that he released. I wish I was one of them. You have no idea how much I wish I loved Magica as much as some of you guys do. How much I love, some of you just love Strange Highways. I wish I was there with you. I wish that I could like that album more than I do, but... All right, well, thank you for listening. This was kind of a rant. This was kind of a reflection. This was something I just wanted to get off my chest, but Ronnie, thank you for everything. Definitely be doing some in-depth album reviews with Ronnie in the future, Dio stuff. Good box set. I got this on CD and on album. Certain bands I want all the vinyl. I'm more of a CD person just because, I grew up when I was getting this stuff. It was becoming more CDs, so I always got more CDs. But there are some bands, and Dio's one of them, that I want all the albums. Studio albums. I don't get all the live albums from bands. So I recommend that, even if you just get it on CD. I definitely recommend getting these albums if you haven't gotten them. All right, thank you for watching, and like, subscribe. I talked about that, but the X and the Instagram. My daughter was supposed to do that. Maybe we'll get it before I drop dead. Who knows? Thanks, guys. Talk to you. See you soon.